The 10 greatest 3-movie runs by an actor ever. What is the greatest 3-movie run by an actor? Well, first, let me define what I mean by greatest and what I mean by 3-movie run. For my purposes, greatest is measured by an equal consideration of movie quality, performance quality, box office, and pop culture relevance. In other words, the films/performances have to be good and well-known. Now, a 3-movie run just means 3 consecutive films in an actor's filmography. I'm going based on release date, so sometimes having multiple films in a year removes an actor from contention. I.e., Morgan Freeman's run of Unforgiven, The Shawshank Redemption, Say Seven Un is actually broken up by a movie called Outbreak, which was released before Say Seven Un in 1995. So, a good 3-movie run is not easy to pull off. There are a lot of well-known actors who don't even sniff this list. Here are a few actors you won't see in the top 10. Matt Damon, Ethan Hawke, Nicolas Cage, Matthew McConaughey, Bradley Cooper. I tried to get a Jack Nicholson 1970s run on the list, but it wasn't meant to be. While movies from a franchise/series/trilogy are eligible, the run cannot include 2 films from the same IP. Tom Cruise's recent string of films being the most obvious one here. Okay, here are the 10 greatest 3-movie runs. From an artistic standpoint, this is not Brad Pitt's best period, but the combined box office, upwards of $1.3 billion, cannot be ignored, and neither can the Brangelina moment that accompanied Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Pitt has a few other noteworthy runs. Legends of the Fall is unfortunately sandwiched between Interview with a Vampire and Say Seven Un, and if The Mexican had been a good film, then the run of Fight Club, Snatch, The Mexican might have featured here. In 2008 to 2009, Pitt worked with the Coen brothers, David Fincher, and Quentin Tarantino, but only Inglourious Bastard rises to the level required for this list. Burn After Reading and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button being the other 2 films. Forever referred to as a character actor with the face of a lead man, Pitt's finest hour may have come as Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but this string of 3 is still pretty great. He really shines in 12, a movie about movie stars more so than about a heist, after playing second fiddle to George Clooney in 11. Though it doesn't feature Denzel's most iconic, best, or award-winning performances, Malcolm X, Training Day, Glory, this is still his strongest consecutive 3. Firstly, he worked with 3 excellent directors, Spike Lee, Tony Scott, and Ridley Scott. Secondly, these 3 films rank 1st, 6th, and 7th by box office performance. This ended up being a pretty easy choice for the Denzel run, but The Pelican Brief, Philadelphia, and Crimson Tide aren't bad either. The phenomenal back-to-back of Remember the Titans, Training Day is stifled by The Hurricane on one side and John Q on the other. Denzel is perfect as the central character in Inside Man. Deja Vu marked his 3rd collaboration with director Tony Scott. They would end up making 5 films together. Crimson Tide, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, The Taking of Pelham 123, Unstoppable. Finally, as noted previously, American Gangster is Denzel's highest-grossing box office film of all time at $270 million worldwide. Not a bad way to cap an impressive 3-movie run for one of the most beloved and enduring movie stars of the last 40 years. I went with Cocktail over Days of Thunder, 1990, because the former made $15 million more at the box office. Although Cruise did meet Nicole Kidman on Days of Thunder, so maybe that is the proper choice. Look, Tom Cruise's entire career has been a great run. His first entry on this list comprises 2 films highly awarded by the Academy. Rain Man won 4 Oscars, Born on the 4th of July won 2, and an early Cruise vehicle that demonstrates his star appeal. Though Dustin Hoffman won the Oscar for Rain Man, Cruise's performance has come to be just as celebrated in the year since. Similarly, Cruise's performance in Born on the 4th of July is considered one of the best of his career, despite not landing him an Oscar. Cocktail isn't really the kind of film that lends itself to good performances, but Cruise's energy and swagger are evident, much like in Top Gun and Risky Business, earlier in the decade. Still, Cruise had yet to reach his peak, and this era was really just the preamble for the Tom Cruise 90s. See number 3. 7. Leonardo DiCaprio. Django Unchained, 2012. The Great Gatsby, 2013. The Wolf of Wall Street, 2013. Leo has always been picky about which directors he decides to work with, a fact that was never more apparent than during this early 2010s run when he worked with 3 iconic directors back to back to back. First, his terrifying turn as Calvin Candie in Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained, then the title role in Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby, and finally his transformation into Jordan Belfort for Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. Leo is the youngest actor on this list. Youngest currently, not youngest at the time of performance. It's not as easy to judge where this run comes in Leo's career as it is for some others on the list, but I feel pretty comfortable calling this mid-career DiCaprio. Though he would have to wait a few more years for that elusive Oscar, The Revenant, in 2016, this is a wicked 3-movie run from Leo. It is not by any means his greatest 3-movie run ever, though. More to come on that later. See number 4. 6. Al Pacino. Serpico, 1973. The Godfather Part 2, 1974. Dog Day Afternoon, 1975. Al Pacino's 1990s comeback, which netted him his only what? Best Actor win. Scent of a Woman is awesome, but it's in his early period that we find our great 3-movie run. 2 of the 3 are Sidney Lumet films, and then, of course, Francis Ford Coppola's follow-up to the epic gangster saga. Though this run is in the number 6 spot, I believe these performances demonstrate the best acting on the list. Pacino's work in The Godfather Part 2 and Dog Day Afternoon constitutes some of the finest acting ever put to film. Watch the scene from The Godfather Part 2 where Diane Keaton tells Michael that she got an abortion. It's harder for me to nail down one scene from Dog Day Afternoon that exemplifies Pacino's best work because the film feels like one long scene. Of course, the film all takes place in one day. Perhaps the telephone scene between Pacino and his lover, Chris Sarandon. Honestly, just watch the whole movie and try not to cry 10 best while taking in possibly the most wonderful screen acting of all time. Robert De Niro. Mean Streets, 1973. The Godfather Part 2, 1974. Taxi Driver, 1976. Due to his outrageous amount of credits, De Niro's batting average is a little lower than that of some of the other all-time greats. For example, The Deer Hunter, Raging Bull. The King of Comedy would be an all-time run, but there's a little-seen movie called True Confessions between Raging Bull and King of Comedy. De Niro's only truly great 3-movie run came in his first 3 major movies. He had been in some movies for Brian De Palma in the late 60s and early 70s, but Mean Streets was his big break. His talent and energy are undeniable in Mean Streets, a fact that Coppola certainly took note of when casting De Niro as young Vito for The Godfather Part 2, a part for which he learned a Sicilian dialect of Italian. Then, De Niro cemented his legendary partnership with Scorsese with Taxi Driver, a role that remains his most culturally relevant to this day. 4. Leonardo DiCaprio. Catch Me If You Can, 2002. The Aviator, 2004. The Departed, 2006. Leo's mid-2000s run will slot in here at number 4. Though none of these 3 are in the top 5 box office hits for Leo, #6, #10, #11. They represent the time in his career when his star shone the brightest. It was in this era that Scorsese tapped Leo as his next great partner, reminiscent of the director's work with Robert De Niro. Though the least successful film of the 3, The Departed won Best Picture for 2006 and Catch Me If You Can grossed $350 million worldwide. The Aviator features perhaps the best Leo performance of the 3. DiCaprio disappears into the eccentric Howard Hughes, carrying an unnecessarily bloated film with his masterful acting work. The unfortunate Don't Look Up killed what could have been another legendary run for Leo, starting with his award-winning performance in The Revenant, then his magnificent work in both Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Perhaps we are in the midst of Leo's next great run with Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, set to be released later this year. 3. Tom Cruise. Mission Impossible, 1996. Jerry Maguire, 1996. Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. TC's greatest run makes the top 3. First, he launched Ethan Hunt and M.I. with Brian De Palma to almost $500 million worldwide. Then, he delivered perhaps his most quintessential movie star performance for Cameron Crowe's Jerry Maguire. Finally, he locked himself away with Nicole Kidman and Stanley Kubrick for more than a year for Eyes Wide Shut, one of the most extensively analyzed films, both artistically and culturally, of all time. Kidman and Cruise split only a year and a half after the release of EWS. Also in 1999, Cruise delivered one of his finest performances ever in Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. Though not eligible for this list, Cruise's current run of Top Gun, Maverick, M.I. Dead Reckoning, M.I. The Final Reckoning is further evidence of a simple fact. There will never be another Tom Cruise. Honestly, the run could start with M.I. Fallout in 2018. Tom Hanks built some great momentum at the start of the 90s with A League of Their Own in 1992 and Sleepless in Seattle in 1993. What he did next, only one other actor has ever done. Spencer Tracy. Hanks won back-to-back Best Actor Oscars for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump in 1993 and 1994. I went with Apollo 13 instead of Sleepless in Seattle because the former made $150 million more at the box office. Either way, what a stretch. In fact, I can say pretty confidently that Tom Hanks's 92-202 is the most impressive 10-year stretch ever by an actor. Hanks' portrayal of Forrest Gump is one of the most iconic in the history of Hollywood, and his work in Philadelphia may be even better. Both of his acceptance speeches are worth checking out, especially the one he gave for Philadelphia. It is by far the most powerful Oscar acceptance speech I've ever seen. Here's hoping one of the all-time greats has another run left in him. Insert Forrest Gump joke here. 1. Harrison Ford. The Empire Strikes Back, 1980. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Blade Runner. If you polled 100 people, asking them what is Harrison Ford's most iconic role, I would expect about a 50-50 split between Han Solo and Indiana Jones. Han Solo is more important to me. Well, Ford played both characters in back-to-back years in 1980 and 1981. Oh, and then he originated Deckard in Ridley Scott's Blade Runner the next year. This is, undoubtedly, the greatest 3-movie run ever by an actor. Even with Blade Runner only making $34 million in 1982, the box office for these 3 films combined was almost $1 billion. Ford's performance in Empire is perhaps even better than his performance in A New Hope, 1977. In the late 70s and into the 80s, the Spielberg-Lucas creative and business partnership was redefining what movies could be, both artistically and culturally. Harrison Ford and his characters were the avatar for this paradigm shift in American cinema. Finally, before coming back to Solo in 1983 for Return of the Jedi and reprising Indy for Temple of Doom in 1984, Ford teamed with Ridley Scott on Blade Runner, a film that has only grown in the public's estimation since it was released almost 45 years ago. Harrison Ford is the GOAT of the 3-movie run.